This is my first entry. I'm not sure how to start it. My name is Minion. I suffer from a series of illnesses, the most prominent one being an autoimmune disease called psoriatic arthritis. Um, I've been trying to live my life as normally as possible and trying to ignore the less pressing symptoms when I can. That was a mistake, and it almost got me killed. And being near death and scaring my family halfway there has made me look at my health more seriously, which is why I'm talking about it now. Um, I'm gonna give you a little background. I rely on a walker and an electric wheelchair depending on my schedule and my pain levels. Every few years, since I was 9 years old, I would pass out for no apparent reason. Sometimes I'd throw up first. First time it happened, I was on the playground. I was running and laughing because I just shared a joke with a friend, and I just keeled over, and nobody could figure out why. And then a few years later, it happened again. Usually, it would happen. I'd get up in the morning and I'd pee, and I'd keel over backwards and end up in the bathtub, unconscious, which is always fun. So yeah, in 2013, I had a huge episode of that. It was just an hour-long session of vomiting and falling over unconscious. So I rushed to the emergency room, and they couldn't figure out what was wrong. All they could figure out, all they could found, because it was several days. It was like a week of every day getting in an ambulance, going to another specialist, getting tested for all kinds of stuff. And the only thing they could come up with is I have a scar on my brain, like right around here, like about that long. And apparently that's from an injury that I sustained when I was an infant. Thanks, Mom. I don't know what happened there, but that's it. That kind of injury apparently only comes from that. So, but what they couldn't tell me was whether that scar was in any way related to what had been happening to me. But while I was there, a rheumatologist did diagnose me with psoriatic arthritis. I've had the skin issues, so yeah, I've got that. I had already started having a little joint pain, just some discomfort, and they diagnosed me with psoriatic arthritis. Started treating me for it. Um, in 2016, our next door neighbor, their apartment caught fire, and my wife told me to go get the family out of there and bring them to our balcony because there was a lot of smoke. So I went in there and I got them. I had to make a few trips. It was a small child and an old lady, and when we finally got them safely out of the smoke, I mean, it was ridiculous. You couldn't see like a half a foot. It was basically like being blind the second you walked into the hallway, and it was pouring into all of the apartments, and the alarms were going off. It was a big scary thing. And then after the apartment was empty, I saw how fast the smoke was spreading, and I hit the floor and I crawled back into that apartment. Kept having to come out for air, and my wife, because she's a lot smarter than I am, gave me a wet towel to put over my face to reduce the amount of smoke inhalation. So I kept crawling back in there, and I found that the stove was all the way up, and there was a pot on there, and all the white smoke was coming out of it. I mean, ridiculous amounts. I don't even know how to describe it. I got the pot. I stood up. I ran out to the balcony. I put it down. I turned the stove off, and I went back onto our balcony, where there was less smoke. A couple minutes later, the fire department showed up, and they evacuated our floor and the few floors around it. Everybody who had inhaled smoke was taken to the hospital for observation. I was the only one. I was rushed first, and I was the only one that was rushed down there in full sirens. I was wheezing. I mean, I'd gotten a lot more smoke than everybody else. I was wheezing, and things were starting to get dark. And the card on my chest said acute organ failure. So yeah, scary stuff. 2 days later, I was released from the hospital, and I noticed that suddenly my joints hurt a lot more. There'd been discomfort before, but it was a new level of pain, and I couldn't step down on the ground anymore. I couldn't put my foot down without feeling like I was walking on hot coals. It was just a drastic change in my pain levels, and I don't know if it was the smoke or if it was the adrenaline or the excitement. I don't know. I just know that I've never been the same since. I've never been able to walk comfortably or move without pain since that day. Within 3 months, I was put in an electric wheelchair. Obviously, with my messed up wrists, I have so much pain in my wrists that I wouldn't be able to propel a normal wheelchair, so they put me in an electric one. And yeah, so now, you know how I got here. I can tell you how I almost died recently. Um, I was getting ready to go on a trip. I was experiencing a lot of new and unusual pains. Um, I've been experiencing a really strong cough to the point of throwing up, which had caused the tendons or like the muscle tissue by my ribs to get infected, and I ended up with pleurisy, which basically means the infection makes that area around your ribs so tender that every time you inhale, it feels like you're being stabbed. I mean, really, it felt like someone was putting a knife in me. It was I can't understate how much pleurisy hurts. It hurt like hell. And yeah, I went to the emergency room and they gave me cough syrup and sent me home. And it was just disheartening. I spent most of the next few days laying on the couch, or when it was completely intolerable, I would run a warm bath and I would just lay in the bathtub for anywhere between 3 to 5 hours. I had several moments where the pain was so bad that I thought I was afraid for my life. It was the scariest thing I had ever been through. It was scarier than the smoke, scarier than the seizures in 2013. Breathing hurts so much that what if I can't do it anymore? What if I can't force myself to inhale through the pain? What if I just stop breathing? I really thought I was going to die. I went back down to the emergency room. They put me on an IV immediately. They gave me some really hard drugs to numb the pain, and they put me on antibiotics right away to kill the infection. I thought it was time to see a doctor more regularly. I need to get all this knocked out. I still had the strong cough, and that's where it all started. Here's some symptoms, and we need to work on this. And over a period of 2 weeks, I was there every 2 days. I had so much going on. I was mostly focused on talking about the cough, the pain in my ribs, and the lungs, and my joint pain. And one of the symptoms that I was saving for last was my swollen left ankle. I figured I was either retaining water or having an arthritis flare. So while I was on my trip to Bavaria, my leg suddenly, it just exploded. Overnight, it was just ridiculously huge. It was twice as big as it was supposed to be. My foot didn't even look like a foot anymore. It looked like, you know how if you blow up a rubber glove like a balloon, that's kind of what my foot looked like. It was scary. So I went to see a doctor there. He took one look at it, sent me immediately to the emergency room. They took one look at it. They did an EKG and a couple of tests, and they said, you have multiple, like your whole leg is basically just like a blood clot. There's so many blood clots in there. And I also have multiple pulmonary embolisms. Was in danger, they told me, of just a blood clot from my lungs loosening, going where it wasn't supposed to be, cutting off blood flow to the heart, and then I would be dead instantly from heart failure, and they wouldn't have known what happened until after the autopsy. I ended up being in the hospital for 3 weeks. I'm still wearing the compression sock, and I'm on blood thinners for the next 6 months. And now you're up to speed. Having been close to death has made it very clear to me I can't ignore symptoms. I can't not go to the doctor. I can't put things off. It's too dangerous. I have a wife. I have kids that I love very much, and I want to be around. I want to stick around for them. So that's what I'm going to do, and whatever it takes. If nothing else, this is something to look back on. And maybe there's someone else out there with other people with a penchant for collecting conditions that hurt like hell, that might benefit from what I've gone through, and maybe make it a little easier for them. I don't know. Anyway, now you guys are invested, possibly. You're along for the ride, and I will let you know how it goes. I feel like my life is about to change drastically. and you guys get to watch it happen as I get to watch it happen. Minion out.